Sign it. My lawyer's waiting. Marcus Sterling threw the envelope onto his wife's trembling legs. Victoria had been in labor for 14 hours. She had almost died twice. 3 babies, her triplets, were crying somewhere down the hall, and she hadn't even held them yet. Her husband didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't look at the bassinets. He checked his Rolex and said, "I have dinner reservations at 8. Don't make this difficult." She thought she had lost everything. But Marcus made one fatal mistake. He didn't check the mail that morning. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. What is this? Victoria's fingers closed around the envelope. Her hands were still shaking from the delivery. The epidural was wearing off. Everything hurt. Divorce papers. Marcus didn't move closer to the bed. Sign them. Divorce? Victoria tried to sit up. Pain shot through her abdomen. Marcus, I just gave birth. To your children. Our children. They're in the NICU right now. They're in the NICU because you couldn't do one thing right. Marcus cut her off. Triplets. I wanted 1. Maybe 2. 3 is excessive and expensive. They're your babies. Are they? Marcus raised an eyebrow. DNA test is already ordered. My lawyers will handle the results. Victoria felt the room tilt. I have never been with anyone else. You know that. You're the only man I've ever... Save it. He pulled a fountain pen from his pocket. She recognized it. The Mont Blanc she gave him for their anniversary. The terms are generous. An apartment in Brooklyn. $2,000 a month for 2 years. After that, you figure it out. $2,000 a month, Victoria whispered. Marcus, I have nothing. I quit my job because you told me to. You said you'd take care of me forever. And I did, for 3 years. He shrugged. Consider it a completed contract. A contract. Tears spilled down her face. I loved you. That's your problem, not mine. Marcus glanced at the door. You were useful, Victoria, a quiet little nobody who made me look like a family man. The board liked that. The Asian investors liked that. But the merger closed yesterday. Stock is up 30%. I don't need the image anymore. I was your wife. You were a placeholder. Marcus smiled. Nothing more. The door swung open. High heels clicked against the floor. Victoria turned her head and stopped breathing. Serena Blake walked in wearing red. Her blonde hair was perfect. Her lips matched her dress. She moved straight to Marcus and wrapped her arm through his like she belonged there. Is she signing or crying? Serena didn't look at Victoria. We're going to be late. Both. Marcus sounded bored. Give her a minute. Victoria stared at Serena. You're here, now, while you're what, bleeding? Serena finally glanced at her. Honey, Marcus and I have been together since before your wedding. We were just waiting for you to pop out the heirs. Heirs. The children. Serena waved her hand like she was discussing furniture. Sterling needs heirs for the family legacy. Once they're old enough, boarding school in Switzerland. Until then, you can raise them. Consider it your job. Unpaid, of course. I'm their mother. You're their incubator. Serena corrected. There's a difference. Now sign so we can leave. The smell in here is making me sick. Victoria looked at the papers, then at Marcus, then at the woman who had been sleeping with her husband for 4 years. What if I don't sign? Marcus leaned over the bed. His face was inches from hers. She could smell scotch on his breath. Then I destroy you. His voice was soft, almost gentle. That made it worse. I'll have my lawyers prove you're mentally unstable, unfit mother, history of depression. I'll take those babies and you'll never see them again. Not a photo, not a birthday, nothing. You can't do that. I own this hospital wing, Victoria. I own judges. I own newspapers. You have $12 in your checking account. He held out the pen. Who do you think wins that fight? Victoria's hand shook as she took the pen. She looked at the door one more time, praying for a nurse, a doctor, anyone. No one came. She signed. Marcus grabbed the papers before the ink was dry. He checked the signature. He smiled. Good girl. A car will take you to Brooklyn when they discharge you. Don't go back to the penthouse. Your things are already gone. Gone where? Goodwill. Serena laughed. We're redecorating. Your grandmother's jewelry and your mother's photos didn't match the new aesthetic. Those were all I had left of them. Were. Serena emphasized the word. Past tense. Like your marriage. Let's go. Marcus took Serena's arm. Press is waiting at the restaurant. Press. Serena held up her left hand. A diamond the size of a marble glittered on her finger. 12 carats. Serena's smile was poison. He proposed last night, while you were screaming in labor. Romantic, isn't it? They walked out. The door closed. Victoria sat in silence for 10 seconds. 20, 30. Then she broke. She curled into herself, ignoring the stitches, ignoring the pain, and screamed into the pillow. She screamed for her babies who would grow up with a father who called them expensive. She screamed for her dead mother's photographs rotting in a donation bin. She screamed for every moment she had believed Marcus Sterling loved her. She screamed until she had nothing left. Then she lay there, staring at the ceiling, counting the tiles. She had $12. She had nowhere to go. She had nothing. Bang. 20 minutes passed. A knock at the door. Go away. Victoria didn't move. Please, I can't take any more. The door opened anyway. She expected a nurse. Maybe Marcus returning to hurt her one more time. It was an old man. He wore a three-piece suit that looked like it came from another century. His white hair was neat. His eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses were kind. He carried a leather briefcase that had seen decades of use. Mrs. Sterling. It's just Victoria now. She still didn't look at him. If you're Marcus's lawyer, leave the papers on the table. I'll sign whatever he wants. I don't work for Mr. Sterling. The old man closed the door. His voice was gentle. British accent, slight. My firm has refused his business 4 times in the past decade. Victoria finally turned her head. Then who are you? Theodore Walsh, senior partner at Walsh Morrison & Associates, Geneva. He sat down slowly in the chair beside her bed. I'm the executor of your grandmother's estate. I don't have a grandmother. Both my grandparents died before I was born. That's what you were told. Theodore opened his briefcase. The truth is different. He handed her a photograph. An elegant woman in her 80s stood in front of a massive estate, silver hair, perfect posture, and her eyes. Victoria couldn't breathe. She has my eyes. You have hers, Theodore said softly. Her name was Eleanor Chen. She was your mother's mother. She was forced to give up her daughter for adoption in 1962. She spent 30 years trying to find her. By the time she did, your mother had already passed. Why didn't she contact me? She did, many times. Theodore's voice hardened slightly. Mr. Sterling intercepted every letter. He had his staff filter your mail. He's known about Eleanor for 2 years. Victoria sat up. The pain didn't matter anymore. Marcus knew I had family. He knew exactly what you stood to inherit. Theodore paused. That's why he married you, Victoria. Not for love, for the fortune he planned to claim as your husband when Eleanor died. Inherit? Victoria laughed. It sounded broken. I have $12. What fortune? Theodore pulled out a document. Blue velvet binding, gold edges. It looked like something from a museum. Eleanor Chen died 6 days ago in Geneva. I've been trying to reach you since then. Mr. Sterling's staff turned me away from the penthouse every time. I only found you tonight through contacts at this hospital. I'm sorry she's gone. Victoria meant it. But I never knew her. Why would she leave me anything? Theodore opened the document. Eleanor Chen wasn't just your grandmother. She was the founder of Chen Walsh Pharmaceuticals. Victoria blinked. Chen Walsh. The company that makes 40% of the world's insulin, 3 of the top 10 cancer drugs, the leading Alzheimer's research facility in Europe, controlling stakes in 17 companies across 4 continents. Theodore looked up at her. Your grandmother watched you from afar for 15 years. She saw you work 2 jobs to pay for college. She saw you care for your dying mother alone. She saw you marry a man who didn't deserve you. She knew about Marcus. She knew everything. She wrote this will 2 weeks before her death. She left instructions that it wasn't to be delivered until you needed it most. Theodore glanced at the empty doorway. I was in the lobby tonight. I saw Mr. Sterling and Miss Blake leave. What does the will say? Theodore put on his reading glasses. I, Eleanor Chen, being of sound mind, bequeath my entire estate to my only living heir, Victoria Marie Chen. This includes all shares of Chen Walsh Pharmaceuticals, all real estate holdings, all liquid assets, and all subsidiary investments. He looked at Victoria. Current valuation as of yesterday's market close, $38 billion. Victoria's heart stopped. Your grandmother also left you controlling interest in First Continental Bank of New York. Theodore continued. This is the institution that holds Mr. Sterling's business loans, his company mortgages, the line of credit keeping Sterling Media Group alive during its expansion. Victoria found her voice. I own his bank. 67% of it. She looked at the divorce papers on the nightstand, the papers she had just signed. He doesn't know. No. Theodore smiled. It was not a kind smile. The inheritance became official 4 hours before you gave birth. There was a letter from my office in this morning's mail, addressed to you. It's probably still on his desk unopened. Victoria started laughing. It wasn't a happy sound. It was wild, almost unhinged. She laughed until tears streamed down her face. He threw me away, she whispered. He called me worthless. He said I was nothing. He was catastrophically wrong. Theodore handed her a pen. Gold, heavy, engraved with the Chen Walsh crest. This belonged to Eleanor. She wanted you to have it. Her message was, tell my granddaughter that the meek may inherit the earth, but the smart ones inherit the companies. Victoria held the pen. It felt solid, real, powerful. What do I do now? Theodore stood. He walked to the door and opened it. A nurse waited outside with a rolling bassinet. 3 babies slept inside. First you meet your children, Theodore said. Then we leave this hospital. Your grandmother's jet is waiting. The presidential suite at the St. Regis is prepared. Security detail is ready, former Secret Service. And I've contacted a stylist. A stylist? If you're going to war, you must wear armor. Theodore's eyes twinkled. Eleanor's words. The nurse wheeled the babies in. Victoria reached out and touched the first one, then the second, then the third. 2 boys, 1 girl. Perfect. Hers. The birth certificates, Victoria said suddenly. Marcus wanted them registered as Sterling's. Already handled. Mr. Sterling waived paternal rights in the divorce agreement to avoid child support. He has no legal claim to their names. They will be registered as Chen tonight. Victoria lifted her daughter. The baby opened her eyes. They looked exactly like Eleanor's in the photograph. Your father threw us away, Victoria whispered to her children. He said we were worthless. He said we were nothing. She looked up at Theodore. How long until Marcus finds out? That depends. Do you want him to find out quickly, or do you want to choose the moment yourself? Victoria thought about Marcus at dinner right now. Champagne, Serena on his arm, laughing about how easily he'd discarded his burden. She thought about the apartment in Brooklyn, the $12, the Goodwill bin holding her mother's photographs. Then she looked at her babies. I want to choose the moment. Victoria's voice was different now, harder. I want him to feel exactly what I felt tonight. I want to watch his face when everything he thought he knew falls apart. Theodore nodded. Then we begin. Can you walk? Victoria swung her legs over the side of the bed. Pain screamed through her body. Her stitches pulled. Her legs shook. She stood anyway. She gathered her babies into the portable bassinets. She walked toward the door. At the threshold she stopped. The divorce papers still sat on the nightstand. Beside them lay the Mont Blanc pen she had given Marcus with love. She picked up the pen. "This is mine," she said. "He doesn't get to keep anything I gave him." She walked out without looking back. 14 hours ago, Victoria Chen had been a pregnant wife waiting for her husband to hold her hand. Now she was a single mother with $38 billion, 67% of her ex-husband's bank, and a plan. Marcus Sterling had wanted a war. He was about to find out what one cost. 3 months changed everything. Victoria stood at the window of her new office on the 52nd floor of the Chen Walsh Tower in Manhattan. She was wearing a white Chanel suit. Her hair was cut into a sharp bob. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like a woman who had never cried herself to sleep in a hospital bed. "The numbers are in." Theodore walked in without knocking. He was the only person allowed to do that. Sterling Media stock dropped another 12% this morning. That's 41% total since we started. And Marcus, panicking, he's called 6 banks trying to refinance. They've all declined. Theodore set a folder on her desk. First Continental sent him a formal notice yesterday. If he misses next month's payment, they begin foreclosure proceedings on his headquarters. Victoria turned around. "Has he figured it out yet?" "No, he thinks it's market correction. Bad luck. He has no idea you exist in his financial world." "Good." Victoria picked up the folder. "What about Serena?" "Spending money like it's water. She bought a yacht last week, $2 million. She's also been seen at jewelry stores, art auctions, and 3 different plastic surgeons. She's securing assets before the ship sinks." "It appears so. Miss Blake is many things, but stupid isn't one of them." Victoria smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. "Keep watching her. She'll be useful later." Theodore nodded and turned to leave. Then he paused. "The charity gala is tonight, the Sterling Media Foundation annual event. Are you certain you want to do this?" "I've never been more certain of anything." "He'll have security, press, hundreds of witnesses. That's exactly what I'm counting on." Victoria closed the folder. "Make sure the car is ready at 7. And Theodore." "Yes. Thank you for everything." Theodore's expression softened. "Your grandmother would be proud, Victoria. You've become exactly who she hoped you would be." He left. Victoria walked to her desk. 3 photographs sat in silver frames. Noah, Elias, Sophie. Her triplets were 3 months old now. They were healthy. They were happy. They were home with the best nannies money could buy. And tonight, their father was going to learn what he had thrown away. The grand ballroom of the Plaza Hotel was packed. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light over 500 of New York's wealthiest citizens. Champagne flowed. Diamonds sparkled. Everyone who mattered was there. Marcus Sterling stood near the bar holding court. He was wearing a custom tuxedo. His hair was perfectly styled. He looked like a man who owned the world. But Victoria noticed things others didn't. The way his jaw was too tight. The way his eyes kept scanning the room. The way he checked his phone every 30 seconds. He was scared. He just didn't know of what yet. "Darling, stop fidgeting." Serena appeared at his elbow, champagne in hand. Her red gown probably cost more than most people's cars. "You're making people nervous. The Italians haven't arrived yet." Marcus took a long drink. "Moretti was supposed to be here an hour ago. If he backs out of this merger..." "He won't back out. You're Marcus Sterling." Serena rolled her eyes. "Stop being paranoid." "I'm not paranoid. I'm realistic. Something is wrong. The banks, the investors, everyone's been acting strange for weeks." "It's the economy. Markets fluctuate. You've told me that 100 times." "This is different." Marcus lowered his voice. "First Continental called in my credit line yesterday. $30 million, due in 30 days. They've never done that before." Serena's smile flickered, just for a moment. "Can you pay it?" "I can restructure, move some things around." Marcus finished his drink. "But I don't understand why they're pressing now. We've never missed a payment." "Then it's fine." Serena squeezed his arm. "Now smile. The photographers are watching." Marcus forced a smile, but his eyes were still scanning, still searching, still afraid. He had no idea he should have been more afraid. The music stopped. Every head in the room turned toward the grand staircase. The massive double doors at the top had opened. A woman stood there alone. She wasn't walking down yet. She was waiting, letting everyone look. Her gown was midnight blue velvet. It hugged her body like it was painted on. The back was completely open, revealing flawless skin. But the jewelry was what made people gasp. A sapphire the size of a small egg hung from her neck, surrounded by diamonds that caught every light in the room. A delicate tiara of black gold and more diamonds sat in her hair. She looked like royalty. She looked like she owned every person in that room. She looked like Victoria Chen. "Who is that?" Serena whispered, her grip tightening on Marcus's arm. "I don't recognize that dress. It's not from any collection I've seen." Marcus squinted. The woman's hair was different. Her posture was different. Her entire presence was different. But something about her eyes. She started descending the stairs. Every step was deliberate. Every movement was calculated. Two men in black suits followed behind her. Security. And beside her walked an old man in a three-piece suit. Marcus's blood turned to ice. He knew that old man. Theodore Walsh, the lawyer who had rejected his business 4 times. The lawyer who represented estates worth more than small countries. The woman reached the bottom of the stairs. The crowd parted for her like she was Moses at the Red Sea. She walked straight toward Marcus. She stopped 3 feet away from him. She smiled. "Hello, Marcus." Her voice was different. Confident. Cold. Amused. "Lovely party. A bit tacky with all the gold, but I suppose that's your taste." Marcus dropped his glass. It shattered on the marble floor. The sound echoed in the sudden silence. "Victoria." Surprised. She tilted her head. "You look like you've seen a ghost. Although I suppose you thought I was dead. Metaphorically, at least. Rotting away in that apartment in Brooklyn you so generously provided." "What are you?" Marcus couldn't form words. How did I afford this dress? These diamonds? The security detail?" Victoria laughed. It was a beautiful, terrible sound. "Oh, Marcus, you really should have checked your mail." Serena stepped forward, her face twisted with contempt. "I don't know what game you're playing, but this is a private event. Security." Victoria didn't even look at her. "Serena, still wearing red. It clashes with your desperation." "How dare you?" "I dare because I can." Victoria finally turned to face her. "I dare because I own this hotel. I dare because I paid for half the champagne in this room. And I dare because, unlike you, I don't need a man to buy my relevance." Serena's face went white. A heavy hand landed on Marcus's shoulder. He spun around to find Giancarlo Moretti, the Italian investor he'd been waiting for all night. "Marcus, my friend." Moretti's voice boomed across the ballroom. "I see you've met our new partner." "Partner?" Marcus blinked. "What partner?" Moretti turned to Victoria and bowed deeply. He took her hand and kissed it with exaggerated formality. "Signora Chen, it is an honor. I was just telling Marcus that our deal cannot proceed without approval from the majority shareholder." "Majority shareholder?" Marcus felt the room spinning. "Moretti, I own 51% of Sterling Media. I am the majority shareholder." "You were," Victoria said softly. She signaled to Theodore. The old lawyer stepped forward and held up a tablet for Marcus to see. "Mr. Sterling." Theodore's voice was perfectly calm. "When you leveraged your personal shares to fund the Asian expansion, you used them as collateral with First Continental Bank. The terms of your loan stated that if your liquidity dropped below a certain threshold, the bank had the right to call the loan immediately and seize the collateral." "My liquidity is fine." Marcus's voice cracked. "I have reserves." "You had reserves," Victoria corrected. "Until this morning. when First Continental, which I own, called in all your loans. Effective immediately. You couldn't pay, so per the contract you signed, your shares were seized. She paused. Let the silence stretch. I bought them from the bank 2 hours ago. Marcus staggered backward. That's impossible. You can't. I own 51% of Sterling Media now, Marcus. Victoria stepped closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper that somehow carried through the entire room. I own this building. I own the chair you sit in. I own the name on the door. She leaned in until her lips were inches from his ear. I own you. She pulled back and raised her voice for the crowd. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming tonight. I am Victoria Chen, and as the new owner of Sterling Media, I have several announcements about the company's future. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Phones appeared. Cameras flashed. First, Victoria continued, there will be a change in leadership, effective immediately. She turned to Marcus. Security, please escort Mr. Sterling and his companion off the premises. They're trespassing. 2 guards stepped forward and grabbed Marcus's arms. Get off me. Marcus struggled against them. I am the CEO. You can't do this. This is my company. Actually, Theodore interjected calmly, the board just voted via emergency conference call. You've been terminated for gross negligence and conduct unbecoming of a corporate officer. He checked his pocket watch. You've been unemployed for approximately 7 minutes now. I'll sue, Marcus screamed as the guards dragged him toward the door. I'll sue you for everything. This is fraud. This is theft. It's business, Victoria called after him. You taught me that, remember? Contracts and leverage. I just learned from the best. Serena tried to run. Another guard caught her arm. Let me go, Serena shrieked. I have nothing to do with this. I'm not his wife. No, you're not. Victoria walked toward her slowly. You're the woman who stood in my hospital room and called my children heirs to be shipped off to boarding school. You're the woman who told me I was their incubator. She stopped inches from Serena's face. How does it feel to be on the other side? Serena's perfect makeup was running. Mascara streaked down her cheeks. Please, Serena whispered. Victoria, please. I was just following his lead. He made me do it. I didn't want to hurt you. You wore his engagement ring while I was bleeding from childbirth. Victoria's voice was flat. You laughed about taking my mother's photographs. She leaned closer. You called me a placeholder. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please. Sorry doesn't interest me. Victoria straightened up. But information does. You're going to tell me everything, Serena. Every secret Marcus has. Every offshore account. Every lie he's told. And if you're very, very cooperative, I might let you keep your freedom. She nodded to the guard. Take her somewhere quiet. Get her a drink. And get her a lawyer. She's going to need one. The guards dragged Serena away. Victoria turned back to the crowd. 500 faces stared at her with a mixture of shock, awe, and fear. She picked up a glass of champagne from a passing waiter. Now, she raised the glass. Shall we discuss business? The next morning, every news outlet in America led with the same story. Billionaire heiress takes down ex-husband in hostile takeover. Scorned wife's revenge. How Victoria Chen destroyed Marcus Sterling in 90 days. From hospital bed to boardroom, the Cinderella story that ended in corporate warfare. Victoria sat in her office watching the coverage on 3 different screens. Theodore stood beside her reading updates on his phone. The stock is up 18% since your announcement, Theodore reported. Investors are calling it a vote of confidence. They like your leadership style. And Marcus? Currently at the Waldorf. He's been on the phone with lawyers all morning. He's filed preliminary paperwork for 7 different lawsuits. Let him file. Victoria took a sip of coffee. How long until he runs out of money? At his current burn rate, approximately 4 months. Less if Miss Blake continues spending. She bought a Birkin bag this morning, $47,000. She doesn't know he's broke yet. She knows. She's extracting value while she can. Theodore almost smiled. Miss Blake has excellent survival instincts. Victoria's phone buzzed. She looked at the screen and frowned. It's him. Mr. Sterling? He's left 14 voicemails since last night. Victoria stared at the phone. He's demanding to meet. You don't have to speak to him. No. But I want to. Victoria set down her coffee. Set up a meeting, somewhere public, somewhere with cameras nearby. When? Tomorrow. Let him sweat for one more night. Theodore nodded and left. Victoria turned back to the windows. Somewhere in this city, Marcus Sterling was pacing in a hotel room, trying to figure out how his life had fallen apart. He was probably calling every contact he had. Probably threatening everyone who wouldn't help him. Probably blaming everyone except himself. She thought about the woman she had been 3 months ago, lying in that hospital bed, signing those papers with shaking hands, believing she was worthless. That woman was dead. The woman standing here now had buried her. Marcus arrived at the restaurant 20 minutes early. He was trying to look confident, but Victoria could see the cracks. His suit was off the rack. His watch was gone, probably pawned. His eyes had dark circles underneath. He stood when she walked in. Old habits. Victoria. Marcus? She sat down across from him. You wanted to talk. Talk. I want to know why. Marcus leaned forward. I want to know why you're doing this to me. Victoria almost laughed. You threw divorce papers on me while I was bleeding from childbirth. You called our children expensive. You told me I was worthless. And you want to know why I'm doing this to you. I was stressed. The merger was. You were cruel. Victoria cut him off. You were deliberately, systematically cruel. You isolated me from everyone I knew. You intercepted letters from my grandmother. You married me because you thought you could steal my inheritance. Marcus went pale. How did you? Theodore told me everything. Victoria's voice was ice. You knew about Eleanor for 2 years. You knew I was going to inherit billions. You were just waiting for her to die so you could claim it as my husband. I can explain. You can't explain anything, Marcus. You were a con artist. I was the mark. The only thing you didn't expect was for me to figure it out before you could finish the job. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. I built that company from nothing. I made Sterling Media. You can't just walk in and take it. I didn't walk in. I bought it. Victoria didn't flinch. Legally. Through the same contracts and leverage you taught me about. The same tactics you bragged about using on your competitors. She smiled. You used to say business was war. You were right. You just didn't expect me to be a general. I'll destroy you. Marcus's voice was shaking. I'll tell the press about your mental health, your instability. I'll make everyone think you're crazy. Will you? Victoria pulled out her phone. Because I have recordings from the hospital room that night. Every word you said, every threat you made, every insult. She played a clip. Marcus's voice filled the restaurant. You were a placeholder, Victoria, a quiet little nobody who made me look like a family man. She stopped the recording. I wonder what the press would think of that. Victoria put the phone away. I wonder what the board would think. I wonder what your mother's friends at the country club would think. Marcus's face was gray. What do you want? I already have what I want. I have my children. I have my company. I have my life back. Victoria stood up. But since you asked, I want you to understand something. I'm not doing this for revenge. I'm doing this for the woman you left in that hospital bed. The one who had $12 and nowhere to go. The one who believed she was worthless because you told her she was. She leaned down until she was eye level with him. She's gone now, Marcus, and the woman who replaced her, she's never going to let anyone treat her like that again. Not you. Not anyone. Victoria straightened up. Goodbye, Marcus. I'd say it's been nice knowing you, but we both know I'd be lying. She walked out of the restaurant. She didn't look back. That night, Victoria sat in the nursery of her penthouse. Sophie was in her arms drinking from a bottle. Noah and Elias were asleep in their cribs. He's not going to stop. Theodore stood in the doorway. Men like Marcus don't accept defeat. They retaliate. I know. He's meeting with lawyers all day tomorrow. Some of them aren't the lawsuit type. Victoria looked up. What do you mean? I mean he's desperate. And desperate men do desperate things. Theodore walked closer. I've increased security, but you need to be careful. He has nothing left to lose. Victoria looked down at Sophie. The baby's eyes were closing. So peaceful, so innocent. He wanted to send them to boarding school, Victoria whispered. He called them expensive. He didn't even look at them when they were born. Some men don't deserve to be fathers. Some men don't deserve to be anything. Victoria kissed Sophie's forehead and laid her gently in the crib. Theodore, I need you to do something for me. Anything. I need you to find out what Marcus is planning. Every conversation, every meeting, every secret. You want me to spy on him. I want you to protect my children. Victoria's voice hardened. And if that means knowing every move Marcus Sterling makes before he makes it, then yes, I want you to spy on him. Theodore nodded slowly. I'll make some calls. I have contacts from my days with MI6. MI6. Another lifetime. Theodore smiled slightly. But the skills are still useful. He turned to leave. Theodore. Yes. Thank you for believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Theodore paused at the door. Your grandmother told me once that the strongest steel is forged in the hottest fire. She was right. He looked back at Victoria. You're going to be extraordinary, Victoria. You already are. He left. Victoria stood alone in the nursery, surrounded by her sleeping children. She thought about Marcus somewhere in the city plotting his revenge. She thought about Serena probably selling secrets to the highest bidder. She thought about all the people who had underestimated her, dismissed her, discarded her. They were all going to learn the same lesson. Victoria Chen was not a victim anymore. She was a force, and she was just getting started. Theodore's warning proved prophetic within 72 hours. Victoria was reviewing quarterly reports when her head of security, a former Secret Service agent named Daniel Cross, walked into her office without knocking. That alone told her something was wrong. Daniel never interrupted without reason. We have a problem. Daniel placed a tablet on her desk. Our surveillance picked this up 30 minutes ago. Victoria looked at the screen. It showed Marcus in a dimly lit bar sitting across from two men she didn't recognize. One was heavy-set with a shaved head. The other was lean with cold eyes that made Victoria's skin crawl. Who are they? The big one is Viktor Kozlov, former Russian military. Currently works as a fixer for people who need problems to disappear. Daniel zoomed in on the second man. The other one is James Harrell, ex-CIA, discharged for excessive force during an interrogation in Afghanistan. Now he freelances for whoever pays. Victoria's blood ran cold. Marcus hired mercenaries. He's meeting with them. We don't have audio, but our lip reader caught fragments. Daniel swiped to a transcript. They mentioned the Hamptons, your estate, and the word package came up 3 times. Package. Daniel's jaw tightened. In their line of work, that usually means a person. Or persons. Victoria's hands gripped the edge of her desk. The children. That's our assessment. Victoria stood up so fast her chair rolled backward and hit the wall. Where are they now? The babies. Safe. I moved them to the secondary location an hour ago. Maria is with them. So are 4 of my best people. Victoria closed her eyes. She breathed. When she opened them again, the fear was still there, but it was buried beneath something harder. What's Marcus planning? Based on what we've gathered, he's going to stage some kind of incident. Make it look like an accident or a random crime. Then use the chaos to grab the children. Daniel pulled up another image. He's been making calls all week. To lawyers who specialize in emergency custody orders. He's planning to claim you're an unfit mother, that you put the children in danger, that he needs to protect them. By kidnapping them first. Classic abuser playbook. Create the crisis, then position yourself as the savior. Victoria walked to the window. The city stretched out below her, millions of people living their lives, unaware that her entire world was balanced on a knife's edge. When? Our best estimate is within the next 48 hours. He's hemorrhaging money. The Waldorf kicked him out yesterday. He's staying at some motel in Jersey now. Daniel paused. Desperate men move fast. Then we move faster. Victoria turned around. I want to know every detail of his plan, every person involved, every location they're considering. That's going to require more aggressive surveillance, possibly illegal surveillance. Do it. Daniel nodded. There's one more thing. Serena Blake reached out through an intermediary this morning. She wants to meet. Serena, why? She says she has information we need. Victoria laughed bitterly. She's probably working with Marcus, setting a trap. Maybe, or maybe she sees the ship sinking and wants to jump before it goes under. Daniel shrugged. Either way, she knows things. Marcus told her things. Pillow talk. Victoria considered this. Serena was a snake, but snakes could be useful if you knew how to handle them. Set up the meeting, somewhere public, lots of witnesses. When? Tonight. I want this resolved before Marcus makes his move. Daniel left to make arrangements. Victoria picked up her phone and dialed Theodore. I need you here, she said as soon as he answered. Marcus is planning something involving my children. Theodore's voice was calm. I'll be there in 20 minutes. And Victoria? Yes. We anticipated this possibility. I have contingencies in place. Contingencies. Your grandmother taught me many things. One of them was to always assume your enemy will escalate, and to be ready when they do. He hung up. Victoria stood alone in her office holding the phone. She thought about Noah, Elias, and Sophie, 3 months old, completely innocent, completely dependent on her to protect them. Marcus wanted to use them as weapons, as bargaining chips, as leverage in his desperate attempt to reclaim the life she had taken from him. He had no idea what he was dealing with. Victoria wasn't just going to stop him. She was going to end him. The coffee shop Serena chose was deliberately ordinary. Brick walls exposed pipes, baristas with tattoos and attitude. The kind of place Marcus Sterling would never be caught dead in. Victoria walked in at exactly 8 p.m. She spotted Serena immediately. The blonde was sitting in a corner booth wearing sunglasses indoors, like she was afraid of being recognized. Her designer bag sat on the table like a security blanket. Victoria slid into the seat across from her. Take off the sunglasses, Serena. You look ridiculous. Serena removed them. Her eyes were red. She'd been crying. Thank you for meeting me. Serena's voice was hoarse. I know you have no reason to trust me. I don't trust you. I'm here because you might be useful. Victoria signaled to a waiter. Coffee, black, and whatever she's having. I'm not hungry. You look like you haven't eaten in days. Order something. Serena hesitated, then asked for a salad. The waiter left. Talk, Victoria said. What information do you have? Serena glanced around nervously. He's going to do something terrible. Marcus? He's lost his mind. I know. My security team has been watching him. Serena's eyes widened. Then you know about the men he hired. Kozlov and Harrell, yes. Do you know about the plan? Victoria leaned forward. Tell me everything. Serena took a shaky breath. He called me 2 nights ago. He was drunk, rambling. He said he was going to take the children and disappear, that he had connections in South America, that once he had the kids, you'd have to pay whatever he asked or you'd never see them again. Ransom. He didn't use that word, but yes. Serena twisted her napkin in her hands. He said he'd demand $5 billion, and that once he had the money, he'd leave the kids somewhere and vanish. Leave them somewhere. His words exactly. like they were packages to be dropped off. Serena's voice cracked. I know I've done terrible things, Victoria. I know I helped him hurt you. But I never signed up for this. I never agreed to be part of kidnapping children. Victoria studied her. Serena looked genuinely terrified. Either she was an excellent actress, or Marcus had finally gone far enough to scare even his accomplice. Why come to me? Why not just disappear yourself? Because I have nowhere to go. Serena's facade crumbled completely. Marcus cleaned out our joint account yesterday. Everything I thought I had, all the jewelry, all the gifts they were bought with credit cards he never paid off. I have nothing. I am nothing. She laughed bitterly. I guess you and I have something in common after all. Victoria felt nothing. No sympathy, no satisfaction, just cold calculation. What else do you know? Details, dates, locations. He's planning to move this weekend, Friday or Saturday night. He knows you have a charity event Saturday at your estate in the Hamptons. He thinks you'll be distracted. How does he plan to get past security? He has blueprints. Someone on your staff sold them to him. Serena paused. I don't know who. He wouldn't tell me. Victoria filed that information away. A traitor in her house. That would need to be addressed. What's he offering you to betray him? Serena blinked. What? You didn't come here out of the goodness of your heart. You want something. What is it? Serena was quiet for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a USB drive. Everything. She placed it on the table between them. Every conversation I recorded. Every text message I saved. Every photo he didn't know I took. She pushed it toward Victoria. There's stuff on there about his business dealings that will put him in prison for decades. Tax fraud, bribery, securities violations, all of it. Victoria looked at the drive, but didn't touch it. And in exchange, I want immunity from whatever comes next. Serena's voice trembled. I want you to tell your lawyers not to include me in any lawsuits. I want to walk away clean. You helped him destroy me. I know. You called my children heirs to be shipped off to boarding school. I know. You stood in my hospital room and laughed while I bled. I know. Serena's voice broke completely. Tears streamed down her face. I know what I did. I hate what I did, but I can't undo it. All I can do is try to make it right. She pushed the drive closer. Please, Victoria, let me help you stop him. Victoria picked up the drive. She turned it over in her fingers. If I find out you're lying, if any of this is a setup, I will destroy you so completely that Marcus Sterling will look like a practice run. I'm not lying. I swear on my life. Victoria put the drive in her pocket. I'll have my lawyers contact you about the immunity agreement. But understand something, Serena. You're not forgiven. You're not redeemed. You're just useful. She stood up. Don't mistake my practicality for mercy. She walked out without looking back. Daniel was waiting in the car outside. Well, Victoria handed him the USB drive. Have the tech team analyze everything on this. If it's legitimate, we have enough to bury Marcus permanently. And if it's a trap, then we spring it first. Daniel started the car. There's a mole on my staff, Victoria said. Someone sold Marcus the blueprints to my Hamptons estate. I'll start vetting everyone immediately. Do it quietly. I don't want them to know we're looking. Understood. Victoria stared out the window as the city lights blurred past. He's going to come for them, Daniel. My children. He's going to try to take them from me. I won't let that happen. I know you won't. Victoria's voice hardened. Because when he makes his move, we're going to be ready. And we're going to make sure he never threatens my family again. The next 48 hours were a blur of preparation. Theodore's contacts proved invaluable. A former MI6 analyst traced Marcus's phone calls. A retired FBI profiler assessed his psychological state. A security consultant mapped every possible approach to the Hamptons estate. Victoria didn't sleep. She couldn't. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Marcus's face, heard his voice, felt the envelope hitting her legs. On Friday morning, Daniel brought her the analysis of Serena's USB drive. It's legitimate. He set a thick folder on her desk. Everything she said is on there. Recordings, documents, photos. Your lawyers are reviewing it now, but the preliminary assessment is that Marcus is looking at 15 to 20 years minimum, maybe more. Good. What about the mole? Daniel's expression darkened. We found him. One of the groundskeepers at the Hamptons property. He's been on Marcus's payroll for 6 weeks. What did you do with him? He's currently being interviewed by some friends of mine, very thoroughly. Has he told you anything useful? The plan is exactly what Serena described. Tomorrow night, during your charity event, Marcus and his team will enter through the service road on the north side of the property. They'll neutralize the security cameras, breach the nursery, and extract the children while you're occupied with guests. Victoria felt sick. Extract, like their cargo. That's how these people think. And once they have them, private plane waiting at a small airfield in Connecticut. From there they fly to Venezuela. No extradition treaty. Victoria closed her eyes. 3 months ago she had been powerless, broken, believing every terrible thing Marcus said about her. Now she was holding the fate of everyone who had ever hurt her in her hands. Here's what we're going to do. Victoria opened her eyes. We let him come. Daniel frowned. Ma'am, we let Marcus execute his plan, or at least he thinks he's executing his plan. Victoria stood up and walked to the window. We moved the children to a secure location miles away. We replaced them with decoys monitored crib sensors. We let Marcus and his mercenaries breach the property. And then we catch them in the act, red-handed, on camera, with witnesses. Victoria turned around. I don't just want Marcus arrested, I want him destroyed. I want the world to see exactly what he is. I want every news outlet running footage of him trying to kidnap his own children. Daniel considered this. It's risky. If anything goes wrong, then we'll have backup. FBI, local police, your team, everyone in position. Victoria's voice was steel. He wants a war, I'll give him Armageddon. I'll need to coordinate with federal authorities. Do it. Tell them everything. I don't care if it exposes our surveillance methods. I care about making sure Marcus Sterling spends the rest of his life in prison. Daniel nodded slowly. When do you want to brief the team? Tonight? Midnight? Everyone who needs to know and no one else. Daniel stood up. Victoria. Yes. Your grandmother chose well. She knew you had this in you. She knew more than I did. Victoria picked up the photo of Eleanor from her desk. She saw the steel under the softness. I just had to find it myself. Daniel left. Victoria held the photograph for a long moment. The grandmother she never knew. The woman who had watched over her from afar. The legacy that had saved her life. I won't let him win. Victoria whispered to the photograph. I promise. Saturday arrived with the kind of perfect weather that made the Hamptons look like a postcard. The charity event was scheduled to begin at 7 p.m. 200 guests. Live music. A silent auction. The kind of evening Marcus Sterling would have killed to attend. Victoria stood in her bedroom at the estate putting on her earrings. They were sapphires that matched the necklace she'd worn at the gala. Her armor. There was a knock at the door. Come in. Theodore entered. His face was grave. The children are secure. Maria has them at the safe house in Connecticut. 3 armed guards. Panic room. They'll be fine. And the decoys? In place. The monitors are running recordings of sleeping babies. Motion sensors in each crib. The moment anyone enters that nursery, we'll know. Victoria nodded. What about Marcus? His team arrived 2 hours ago. They're positioned in a rental house about 3 miles from here. Our surveillance shows 5 men total. Marcus Kozlov Harrell and 2 others we haven't identified yet. 5 against how many of ours? 12 on property. Another 20 FBI agents staged within a 5-minute response radius. Good. Victoria finished with her earrings and turned around. Then let's end this. The party was everything it was supposed to be. Victoria played the perfect hostess, smiling, laughing, charming donors out of their money. No one suspected that beneath her calm exterior, every nerve was screaming. At 9:47 p.m., her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. Movement, North Perimeter, 5 minutes. Victoria excused herself from a conversation with a hedge fund manager and walked toward the back of the house. She found Daniel in the security room watching a wall of monitors. They cut the cameras on the north fence 3 minutes ago. Daniel pointed to a dark screen. But they don't know we have infrared backup. He switched to a different feed. 5 figures in black moved through the trees heading toward the house. Marcus is in the middle, the cowards letting his hired guns lead. Victoria watched the screen. Her heart was pounding, but her hands were steady. Let them get inside. Let them reach the nursery. Ma'am, I want them caught in the act, Daniel. No ambiguity, no excuses. Daniel nodded and spoke into his radio. All teams hold position. Let them proceed. Do not engage until my signal. On the monitor, the 5 figures reached the side of the house. One of them produced tools and began working on a window. 30 seconds later, they were inside. Victoria watched as they moved through the hallways. They were professionals. Silent. Efficient. They knew exactly where they were going. The nursery was on the 2nd floor. 3 cribs. 3 decoys. 3 traps waiting to spring. The lead man reached the door. He tested the handle. Locked. He pulled out a lockpick. 20 seconds. The door opened. They filed inside, one by one, all 5 of them. The moment Marcus crossed the threshold, Victoria spoke. Now. Daniel's voice cracked through the radio. All teams engage. All teams engage. Floodlights exploded across the property. Sirens wailed. FBI agents emerged from hidden positions. Inside the house, Victoria's security team swarmed the 2nd floor. On the monitor, Victoria watched Marcus's face as the room flooded with armed men pointing weapons at him. The expression was priceless. Shock, disbelief, terror. He looked at the cribs, empty. Nothing but monitors and speakers. What? His voice came through the microphone hidden in the room. Where are they? Where are they? Victoria picked up the intercom connected to the nursery speakers. Hello, Marcus. He spun around looking for her. Victoria, Victoria. The children aren't here. They haven't been here all day. You came all this way to kidnap empty cribs. You can't do this. You can't. I can do whatever I want. I own you, remember? Victoria's voice was ice. Federal agents have you on camera breaking into my home with armed mercenaries. That's attempted kidnapping, breaking and entering, and about 15 other charges my lawyers are very excited about. I'll kill you, Marcus screamed. I swear to God, You'll what threaten me again. Victoria laughed. Marcus, you've been threatening me since the day we met. You told me I was worthless. You told me I was nothing. You told me no one would ever believe me over you. She paused. How does it feel to be wrong? The FBI agents moved in. They forced Marcus to his knees. They cuffed his hands behind his back. Through the monitor, Victoria watched her ex-husband, the man who had thrown divorce papers on her bleeding body, who had called their children expensive mistakes, who had tried to steal everything she had, get dragged out of her house in handcuffs. He was still screaming her name. She turned off the intercom. It's over, Daniel said quietly. He's done. Victoria nodded, but she didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel victorious. She felt tired. I want to see my children, she said. Now. The helicopter is standing by. Victoria walked out of the security room through the house full of confused guests, past the flashing lights of police cars. She didn't stop to explain. She didn't stop to celebrate. She climbed into the helicopter and flew through the darkness toward her babies. They were sleeping when she arrived. All 3 of them. Safe. Perfect. unaware of how close they had come to being stolen by a man who never deserved to call himself their father. Victoria stood over their cribs for a long time, watching them breathe, counting their fingers, memorizing their faces. "He's never going to hurt you," she whispered. "No one is ever going to hurt you. I promise." Theodore appeared in the doorway. "The FBI has him in custody. Bond hearing is Monday. Given the evidence and the flight risk, they're recommending no bail." "Good. The press is already running the story. It's everywhere. Marcus Sterling attempted kidnapper. The footage from the nursery cameras is on every network." "Good." Theodore walked closer. "How do you feel?" Victoria didn't answer immediately. She touched Noah's cheek, then Elias's, then Sophie's. "I feel like a mother," she finally said. "That's all I ever wanted to be." Theodore nodded. He understood. "Get some rest, Victoria. Tomorrow will be complicated." "Tomorrow is always complicated." Victoria finally smiled. "But tonight my children are safe. Tonight the man who tried to destroy us is in handcuffs. Tonight I won." She kissed each of her babies. Then she sat down in the chair between their cribs. And for the first time in months, Victoria Chen slept. The courtroom was packed. Every seat was taken. Reporters lined the walls. Camera crews waited outside. The trial of Marcus Sterling had become the most watched legal proceeding in America since O.J. Simpson. Victoria sat in the front row directly behind the prosecution table. She was wearing a simple black dress. No jewelry except for her grandmother's ring. She wanted to look like what she was, a mother seeking justice. Theodore sat beside her. His hand rested on hers, steady and reassuring. "Are you ready for this?" he asked quietly. "I've been ready for 6 months." The side door opened. 2 federal marshals escorted Marcus into the courtroom. He was wearing an orange jumpsuit. His hands were cuffed in front of him. His face was gaunt, pale, covered in stubble. He looked nothing like the man who had thrown divorce papers on her hospital bed. Marcus scanned the room until his eyes found Victoria. Something flickered in his expression. Hatred, desperation, maybe even regret. Victoria held his gaze without flinching. He looked away first. The judge, a stern woman named Patricia Holloway, took her seat. "This court is now in session. The United States of America versus Marcus Andrew Sterling. Are both parties ready to proceed?" The prosecution stood. "Ready, Your Honor." Marcus's defense attorney, a high-priced lawyer named Richard Vance, who had probably been paid with the last of Marcus's hidden assets, rose slowly. "Ready, Your Honor." "Very well. Mr. Prosecutor, your opening statement." The federal prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Blake, stepped forward. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this case is not complicated. The defendant Marcus Sterling conspired to kidnap 3 infant children from their mother's home. He hired armed mercenaries. He planned to flee to a country with no extradition treaty. He intended to use those children as leverage to extort billions of dollars from their mother." She paused, letting the words sink in. "This is not a custody dispute. This is not a family disagreement. This is a calculated, premeditated crime orchestrated by a man who viewed his own children not as human beings, but as commodities to be traded for profit." Catherine walked toward the jury box. "Over the next 2 weeks, you will hear testimony from FBI agents who witnessed the defendant enter that home. You will see video footage of him and his hired criminals moving through the hallways toward the nursery. You will hear recordings of him discussing ransom demands with his co-conspirators." She turned and pointed at Marcus. "This man is not a father. He is a predator, and it is your duty to ensure he never has the opportunity to harm those children or anyone else again." The defense attorney's opening statement was predictable. Claims of entrapment. Accusations that Victoria had manipulated the situation. Suggestions that Marcus was simply a desperate father trying to see his children. Victoria listened without expression. She had heard all of this before. The narrative Marcus had been spinning for months. The victim story he desperately wanted people to believe. It wasn't going to work. The prosecution's case was methodical and devastating. Day 1, FBI Special Agent Michael Torres testified about the surveillance operation. He played audio recordings of Marcus discussing the kidnapping plan with Kozlov and Harrell. The courtroom heard Marcus's voice saying, "Once we have the kids, she'll pay whatever I ask, $5 billion, maybe more. She's got the money." Day 2. Security footage from the Hamptons estate. The jury watched 5 masked figures move through the house. They watched Marcus enter the nursery. They watched his face when the lights came on, and he realized he had been caught. Day 3. Serena Blake took the stand. Victoria hadn't seen Serena since the coffee shop. The blonde woman looked different now, smaller, broken. Her designer clothes had been replaced with a simple gray suit. Her perfect hair was pulled back in a plain ponytail. "Ms. Blake," the prosecutor began, "can you describe your relationship with the defendant?" "I was his girlfriend." Serena's voice was barely audible. "For 4 years. We started seeing each other before he married Victoria." "And were you aware of his plans regarding the children?" "Yes." Serena closed her eyes. "He told me everything." "Can you tell the court what he told you?" Serena took a shaky breath. "He said he was going to take the babies and disappear. He said Victoria would pay anything to get them back. He called it—" She stopped. "Go on, Ms. Blake." "He called it his retirement plan." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. The judge called for order. "And what did he say he would do with the children once he received the money?" Serena wiped her eyes. "He said he would leave them somewhere, a church or a hospital. He said he didn't want them, he just wanted the money." "Did he ever express any concern for the children's welfare?" "No." Serena's voice cracked. He called them expensive noise machines. He said the only thing they were good for was leverage." Victoria felt Theodore's hand tighten on hers. She didn't look away from Serena. "Ms. Blake, why are you testifying against the defendant?" Serena finally looked at Victoria. Their eyes met for a long moment. "Because I helped him hurt her," Serena said quietly. "I stood in that hospital room and watched him destroy her, and I did nothing. I laughed." She turned back to the jury. "I've done terrible things. Things I'll never forgive myself for. But I won't help him hurt those children. I won't be part of that." The defense tried to discredit Serena on cross-examination. They suggested she was testifying for immunity. They implied she was angry about being abandoned by Marcus. They called her a scorned woman seeking revenge. Serena didn't break. "Yes, I'm getting immunity," she told the defense attorney. "Yes, I'm angry. But everything I've said is true. Every word. And if you don't believe me, listen to the recordings. Listen to his own voice. He said these things. He planned these things. I was there." Day 4 belonged to the mercenaries. Victor Kozlov and James Harrell had both taken plea deals in exchange for testimony. They detailed every aspect of the plan: the reconnaissance, the weapons, the private plane waiting in Connecticut, the safe house in Venezuela. Mr. Sterling was very specific about what he wanted. Harrell testified. "Get in, grab the kids, get out. Don't hurt anyone unless necessary." He wanted it clean. "And what would have happened if Mrs. Chen had resisted?" Harrell paused. "He said to use whatever force was required. He said she was—" He glanced at Victoria. "He said she was expendable." The courtroom erupted. The judge banged her gavel. Victoria sat perfectly still while chaos swirled around her. Expendable. The word echoed in her mind. Expendable. That's what she had always been to Marcus. A tool to be used and discarded. A means to an end. A placeholder. But she wasn't expendable anymore. She was the one who had exposed him, caught him, destroyed him, and now she was going to watch him face justice. Day 5. Victoria took the stand. The walk from her seat to the witness box felt like miles. Every eye in the courtroom followed her. Cameras zoomed in from the media gallery. Marcus stared at her with undisguised hatred. She sat down. She placed her hands in her lap. She breathed. "Mrs. Chen, Catherine began gently. "Can you describe the day your children were born?" Victoria told them everything. She told them about the 14 hours of labor, the complications, nearly dying twice, waking up exhausted and bleeding expecting her husband to hold her hand. She told them about the envelope hitting her legs. She told them about the divorce papers, the threats, the insults, Marcus calling their children expensive, Serena calling her an incubator, being told she had $12 and nowhere to go. She told them about Theodore arriving with news of her grandmother, the inheritance she never knew existed, the fortune Marcus had known about for 2 years and kept hidden. She told them about rebuilding her life, taking back her children, discovering Marcus's plans, setting the trap that caught him. She told them everything. When she finished, there were tears on faces throughout the courtroom. Jurors were wiping their eyes. Even the judge looked moved. "Mrs. Chen," Catherine asked, "what do you want from this trial?" Victoria looked at Marcus. He was slumped in his chair, pale and defeated. "I want my children to grow up safe," Victoria said. "I want them to know that the system works, that people who do terrible things face consequences." She paused. "I don't want revenge, Ms. Blake. I just want justice. I want to know that this man will never be able to hurt us again." The defense's cross-examination was brutal but ineffective. Richard Vance tried to paint Victoria as vindictive. He suggested she had manipulated the situation. He implied she had entrapped Marcus. Victoria remained calm. "Mr. Vance, did I force your client to hire mercenaries?" "I'm asking the questions. Did I force him to plan a kidnapping? Did I force him to call his own children leverage? Did I force him to say I was expendable?" "Mrs. Chen." "I didn't trap Marcus Sterling. I gave him an opportunity to make a choice. He chose to commit a crime." Victoria leaned forward. "That's not entrapment. That's justice." Vance had no response. The trial lasted 11 days. Closing arguments were delivered on a Thursday morning. Catherine Blake summarized the evidence methodically. The recordings, the footage, the testimony, the irrefutable proof that Marcus Sterling had conspired to kidnap his own children for ransom. Richard Vance made one final attempt to paint Marcus as a desperate father. He talked about paternal rights, about family court failures, about a man pushed to extremes by a vindictive ex-wife. No one in the jury box looked convinced. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. Victoria waited in a small room with Theodore. She couldn't eat. She couldn't sit still. She paced back and forth, checking her phone every 30 seconds. "They'll convict him," Theodore said calmly. "The evidence is overwhelming." "I know." Victoria stopped pacing. "But until I hear the words, I can't breathe. Does that make sense?" "Perfect sense." Theodore stood and walked to her. "Victoria, no matter what happens in that courtroom, you've already won. You survived. You thrived. You protected your children. Nothing can take that away." Victoria hugged him. She couldn't remember the last time she had hugged anyone. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything, for believing in me." "Your grandmother believed in you," Theodore said softly. "I simply honored her faith." The knock came at 3:47 p.m. "Jury's back." Victoria walked into the courtroom on legs that felt like water. She took her seat. She gripped the bench in front of her until her knuckles turned white. The jury filed in. 12 faces, 12 strangers who held Marcus's fate in their hands. The judge turned to the foreman. "Has the jury reached a verdict?" "We have, Your Honor." "On the charge of conspiracy to commit kidnapping, how do you find guilty?" Victoria exhaled. "On the charge of attempted kidnapping, how do you find guilty?" "On the charge of conspiracy to commit extortion, how do you find guilty?" The verdicts kept coming. Guilty on all 14 counts. Marcus sat motionless as each word landed like a hammer blow. By the end, he had his head in his hands. The judge turned to him. "Mr. Sterling, you have been found guilty of some of the most serious crimes a person can commit. You conspired to kidnap your own children. You planned to hold them for ransom. You hired armed criminals to invade a home. You showed no regard for the safety or welfare of 3 innocent infants." She paused. "I have seen many criminals in this courtroom, con men, fraudsters, even violent offenders. But rarely have I encountered someone as coldly calculating as you. You viewed your own children as commodities. You called your ex-wife expendable. You showed no remorse, no conscience, no humanity." The judge straightened her papers. "Marcus Andrew Sterling, I hereby sentence you to 35 years in federal prison without the possibility of parole. You will serve this sentence at a maximum security facility to be determined by the Bureau of Prisons." She banged her gavel. "Court is adjourned." The room exploded with noise. Reporters shouted questions. Cameras flashed. Marcus was pulled to his feet by marshals. Victoria didn't move. She sat there as chaos swirled around her, and she watched the man who had destroyed her life get dragged away in chains. He looked back at her one last time. Their eyes met. Marcus opened his mouth to say something. Victoria turned away. He wasn't worth her attention anymore. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed her like locusts. "Mrs. Chen, how do you feel about the verdict? Mrs. Chen, what message do you have for other victims of domestic abuse? Mrs. Chen, what's next for you and your children?" Victoria stood at the top of the courthouse steps. Theodore was beside her. Daniel was behind her with the security team. The whole world was watching. She stepped up to the microphones. "I have a brief statement." Her voice was calm and clear. 6 months ago, I was a woman who believed she was worthless. My husband told me I was nothing, and I believed him. He told me I had no value, and I believed him. He told me no one would ever choose me, and I believed him. She paused. Today, 12 strangers chose to believe me. They heard my story, they saw the evidence, and they decided that what happened to me was wrong. Victoria's voice strengthened. To every woman who is being told she is worthless, you are not. To every mother who is being threatened by someone who should protect her, help exists. To every person who thinks they are trapped, there is a way out. She looked directly into the cameras. I didn't become a billionaire to get revenge. I became a billionaire to get justice. And today, justice was served. She turned and walked to her waiting car. The reporters kept shouting questions, but she didn't answer. She had said everything she needed to say. In the car, Theodore handed her a glass of water. "Well done," he said. Eleanor would have been proud. Victoria leaned her head back against the seat. "It's over," she whispered. "It's finally over. The trial is over." Theodore agreed. "But your story is just beginning." Victoria looked at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean that you have resources most people can only dream of. You have a platform. You have a voice." Theodore smiled. "What are you going to do with them?" Victoria thought about the women she had seen outside the courthouse, the ones holding signs, the ones who had told reporters they were there because Victoria's story was their story, the ones who said they had left abusive partners because of what she had done. "I'm going to help them," Victoria said slowly. "All of them. Every woman who needs to know that she's not alone. Every mother who needs resources to protect her children. Every person who needs someone to believe them." Theodore nodded. "Then I suggest we start planning. Tomorrow." Victoria closed her eyes. "Tonight, I just want to hold my babies." The drive to the safe house took 40 minutes. Victoria spent every second thinking about Noah, Elias, and Sophie. They were 8 months old now. They were crawling. They were babbling. They were becoming people. And they would never know their father as anything other than a cautionary tale. The door opened before Victoria could knock. Maria, the nanny, was smiling. "They've been asking for you," Maria said. "Well, Sophie has been saying something that sounds like mama. The boys mostly just throw food." Victoria laughed. It felt strange. Good, but strange. She walked into the house and found her children in the playroom. They looked up when she entered. 3 faces, 3 smiles. Three tiny humans who had no idea their mother had just watched their father get sentenced to prison. Victoria dropped to her knees. "Come here." She opened her arms. "All of you, come here." They crawled to her, slowly, clumsily, perfectly. She gathered them in her arms and held them tight. "It's over," she whispered into their hair. "He's never going to hurt us again, I promise." Sophie grabbed Victoria's nose. Elias tried to eat her earring. Noah started crying because he wanted milk. It was chaos. Beautiful, wonderful chaos. And for the first time in almost a year, Victoria Chen felt at peace. That night, after the children were asleep, Victoria stood on the balcony of the safe house. The stars were clear and bright. The world was quiet. Her phone buzzed. A message from Theodore. "The foundation paperwork is ready. We can announce whenever you're prepared. Also the ratings for your courthouse statement, 47 million views and counting. You've touched something, Victoria. Something important." Victoria typed back, "Tomorrow. We start tomorrow." And Theodore, "Thank you for everything, for saving my life." His response came immediately. "You saved your own life, Victoria. I just held the door open." She put the phone away and looked up at the stars. Somewhere in a maximum security prison, Marcus Sterling was spending his first night in a cell. He would spend the next 35 years there. He would grow old there. He would die there. Victoria felt no satisfaction at the thought. No joy, no triumph. She just felt free. Free from his lies. Free from his control. Free from the woman she used to be. Victoria Chen had lost everything on the worst night of her life. And in losing everything, she had found something more valuable than billions. She had found herself. 5 years changed everything and nothing. Victoria stood at the window of her corner office on the 63rd floor of the Chen Walsh Tower. The building had been renamed 2 years ago after she merged her grandmother's pharmaceutical empire with the media company she had taken from Marcus. The logo on the side now read Chen Global Industries. Her reflection in the glass showed a woman who bore little resemblance to the broken girl in the hospital bed. Her hair was longer now, styled in soft waves. Her posture was confident. Her eyes held a wisdom that only comes from surviving the unsurvivable. "Mom, the numbers are in." Her assistant's voice came through the intercom. The foundation exceeded its annual target by 47%. Over 200,000 women received assistance this year. Victoria smiled. "Schedule a celebration for the team. They've earned it." "Also, Theodore is on his way up. He said it's important. Send him in when he arrives." Victoria turned back to the window. The city stretched out below her, millions of lives unfolding in the concrete maze. Somewhere out there, women were making the same phone calls she had once been too afraid to make. They were leaving the men who hurt them. They were starting over. They were discovering that rock bottom was not the end. It was the foundation. The Phoenix Foundation had grown beyond anything Victoria had imagined. What started as a personal mission had become a national movement. Shelters in 47 states, legal aid programs in every major city, a 24-hour hotline that received 10,000 calls a month. Every time Victoria felt tired, every time she wondered if she was making a difference, she read the letters. Thousands of them. Women who had left abusive husbands because of her story. Mothers who had protected their children because of resources the foundation provided. Lives that had been saved because someone finally believed them. Those letters kept her going. The door opened. Theodore walked in slowly. He was 83 now, his steps more careful, his movements more measured. But his eyes were as sharp as ever, and the smile on his face was genuine. "You look well." Theodore lowered himself into the chair across from her desk. "The board meeting must have gone smoothly." "It did. Revenue is up, stock is stable, the Asian expansion is ahead of schedule." Victoria sat down across from him. "But you didn't come here to discuss quarterly reports." "No." Theodore reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. "This arrived at my office this morning, from the federal prison in Colorado." Victoria's smile faded. "Marcus. He's written to you before. You've never read the letters. I burned them. I know. Theodore set the envelope on the desk between them. But this one is different. The warden included a note. Marcus is dying. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. Doctors give him 3 months, maybe less. Victoria stared at the envelope. She didn't touch it. He's requesting a visit. Theodore continued. He says he needs to tell you something before he dies. Something about the children. The children are fine. They're perfect. They don't need anything from him. I agree, but I thought you should know. Theodore paused. I also thought you might want closure. Not for him, for yourself. Victoria picked up the envelope. It felt heavier than it should. What do you think I should do? I think you should do whatever brings you peace. Theodore stood up slowly. You've spent 5 years building something beautiful out of something terrible. You've helped hundreds of thousands of people. You've raised 3 remarkable children. You have nothing to prove to Marcus Sterling. But sometimes the final chapter needs to be written in person. Theodore walked toward the door. Whatever you decide, I support you. Eleanor would have supported you. He left. Victoria sat alone with the envelope for a long time. She thought about burning it like all the others. She thought about pretending it never arrived. Instead, she opened it. The handwriting was shaky, barely legible. Nothing like the confident strokes she remembered from the divorce papers. Victoria, I know you have no reason to read this. I know you hate me. You should hate me. I was a monster. I did unforgivable things. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm not asking for mercy. I'm just asking for 5 minutes. There's something I need to tell you about the children. Something I should have told you years ago. Please, just 5 minutes. Then you never have to think about me again. Marcus. Victoria read the letter 3 times. Then she picked up the phone and called Theodore. Arrange the visit. The prison was exactly what she expected. Gray walls, metal detectors, armed guards who looked through her like she wasn't there. The smell of industrial cleaner and desperation. Victoria wore a simple black dress. No jewelry except her grandmother's ring. She wanted Marcus to see her exactly as she was successful, confident, unbroken. The visitation room was small and cold. A metal table. 2 chairs. A guard standing in the corner. The door opened. Marcus shuffled in. Victoria barely recognized him. The man who had once commanded boardrooms and intimidated everyone around him was a skeleton in an orange jumpsuit. His skin was yellow. His cheeks were hollow. His hands shook as the guard helped him into the chair. He looked like death waiting to happen. Victoria. His voice was a whisper. You came. I came. Victoria didn't move, didn't reach across the table, didn't offer comfort. You said you had something to tell me about the children. Marcus nodded slowly. It seemed to cost him enormous effort. Before I say anything else, I need you to know something. He coughed a wet, terrible sound. I'm sorry. I know that word means nothing. I know it doesn't change what I did. But I need to say it. I'm sorry for everything. The hospital, the divorce, the kidnapping, all of it. Victoria waited. When I married you, I thought I was so smart. Marcus continued. I knew about Eleanor. I knew about the inheritance. I thought I could take everything and leave you with nothing. He laughed bitterly. I was the stupidest man alive. Yes, you were. I didn't see you, Victoria. I looked at you every day for 3 years, and I never saw you. I saw what I wanted to see, a weak woman, a tool to be used, a stepping stone. He shook his head. I was blind. What did you want to tell me about the children? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his jumpsuit pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. This is a letter I wrote to them. I want you to give it to them when they're older, when they can understand. He pushed it across the table. I want them to know that what I did was my fault. Not yours, not theirs, mine. Victoria took the letter but didn't open it. What does it say? It says that I was a terrible father, that I never deserved them, that their mother is the strongest, bravest person I've ever known, and that they should be proud to be her children. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. It says that I hope they grow up to be nothing like me. Victoria stared at him. The man who had haunted her nightmares for 5 years. The monster who had tried to steal her children. The villain of her story. He looked so small now, so pathetic, so utterly defeated. "Why didn't you just love us?" Victoria heard herself ask. "Why wasn't that enough for you?" "Because I didn't know how." Marcus wiped his eyes with a trembling hand. "My father never loved me. My mother was never around. I grew up thinking that love was weakness, that the only thing that mattered was power and money." He looked at her. "You tried to show me something different. I was too broken to see it." "That's not an excuse." "I know. There is no excuse." Marcus coughed again, longer this time. The guard stepped forward, but Marcus waved him away. "I'm not asking you to feel sorry for me. I'm not asking for anything. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I threw away." Victoria stood up. "I'm going to give the children your letter," she said, "when they're 18, not before. I won't poison their childhood with your words. That's fair? They don't ask about you." Victoria continued. "They know they have a father somewhere, but they don't wonder about you. They don't miss you. They have Theodore. They have Maria. They have me. They have everything they need." "Good." Marcus nodded. "That's good." Victoria walked toward the door. Then she stopped. "Marcus?" "Yes." She turned around, looked at him one last time. "I forgive you." Marcus's face crumbled. For a moment, he looked like a child lost in the dark. "What?" "I forgive you." Victoria's voice was steady. "Not for your sake, for mine. I've carried your hatred for 5 years. I'm done. You're dying. You'll be dead soon, and I refuse to spend another minute of my life being angry at a ghost." Victoria. "Goodbye, Marcus." She opened the door. "I hope you find whatever peace is available to you." She walked out without looking back. 3 months later, she received a call from Theodore. Marcus Sterling had died in his sleep. The prison chaplain said he went peacefully. His last words were Victoria's name. Victoria didn't cry. She didn't celebrate. She just hung up the phone and went to pick up her children from school. Life moved forward. That was the only appropriate response. The 5th birthday party was chaos in the best possible way. Victoria stood in the backyard of her Hamptons estate watching her 3 children tear through a bounce house like tiny tornadoes. Noah was the leader, as always, directing his siblings in some complicated game only they understood. Elias followed close behind, laughing at everything. Sophie brought up the rear, more interested in the cake table than any physical activity. "They're beautiful." Theodore sat beside Victoria in a lawn chair. He looked frailer than he had a year ago. Time was catching up with him. Eleanor would have loved them. I wish she could have met them. She did, in a way. Theodore smiled. Every time Sophie laughs, I see Eleanor. The same sparkle, the same mischief. Victoria watched her daughter successfully steal a cupcake without anyone noticing. Theodore was right. Sophie had her great-grandmother's spirit. "I've been thinking about stepping back," Victoria said. "From the company. Not the foundation, but Chen Global. The board is strong. The executives are capable. Maybe it's time for me to be just a mother for a while." "You could never be just anything," Theodore chuckled. "But I understand. These years go fast. My biggest regret is the time I didn't spend with my own children when they were small." "You have children?" "Had. A son and a daughter. Both gone now." Theodore's eyes grew distant. "Cancer took my son. A car accident took my daughter. That's why I threw myself into work. It was easier than feeling." Victoria reached over and took his hand. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." "You weren't meant to." Theodore squeezed her fingers gently. "But watching you with those 3, it reminds me of what matters. Not the money, not the power, just the moments. The small, ordinary moments that become memories." Noah came running over his face covered in frosting. Mom Sophie said she's the queen and we have to do whatever she says." "Is that so?" Victoria laughed. "And what does the queen command? She wants all the cupcakes, every single one." "Well, we can't let tyranny stand." Victoria stood up and scooped Noah into her arms. "Let's go negotiate with Her Majesty." She carried her son toward the bounce house, his giggles filling the air. Theodore watched them go, a smile on his weathered face. This was what victory looked like. Not boardrooms or bank accounts. Not revenge or retribution. Just a mother holding her child. Just laughter in the afternoon sun. Just love, simple and pure. Everything else was details. 6 months after the birthday party, Victoria stood on a stage in front of 500 women. The Phoenix Foundation annual gala had become the most anticipated charity event in New York. Celebrities attended. Politicians gave speeches. But the real stars were the survivors. Women who had escaped abusive relationships. Mothers who had protected their children. Ordinary people who had done extraordinary things. Victoria adjusted the microphone. 5 years ago, I was lying in a hospital bed. I had just given birth to triplets. My husband threw divorce papers on my legs and told me I was worthless. She paused. Some of you know this story. It's been in the news. It's been in documentaries. But what the media never captured was the moment right after he left. The moment when I was completely alone. The room was silent. I thought my life was over. I had $12. I had nowhere to go. I had 3 babies who needed me and no idea how I was going to feed them. Victoria's voice caught. I wanted to give up. I almost did. She looked out at the sea of faces. Hundreds of women who had felt the same despair, who had stood at the same edge, who had somehow found the strength to step back. Then something miraculous happened. A man walked into my room and told me I wasn't alone. He told me my grandmother had left me a fortune. He told me I had value I never knew existed. Victoria smiled. But here's the thing. The money didn't save me. The money was just a tool. What saved me was the choice to keep fighting. The choice to believe I was worth fighting for. She stepped out from behind the podium. Every woman in this room has that same choice. Every woman in this room has that same worth. You don't need a secret inheritance. You don't need a billionaire grandmother. You just need to believe that you deserve better. And you do. Every single one of you does. Victoria walked to the edge of the stage. I started this foundation to give women the resources they need to escape. Legal aid, shelter, job training. But resources aren't enough. What women really need is hope. The hope that there's light on the other side of the darkness. The hope that their story doesn't end with someone else's cruelty. She looked at a woman in the front row. Tears were streaming down her face. You are not worthless, Victoria said directly to her. You are not nothing. You are not a placeholder or an incubator or any of the terrible things he called you. You are a survivor. And survivors don't just endure, they rise. The applause was thunder. Victoria stood on that stage for a long moment, letting the sound wash over her. 5 years ago, she had been afraid of her own shadow. Now she was speaking to hundreds, inspiring thousands, changing millions. All because she refused to stay broken. Later that night after the gala, Victoria found Theodore in the coat room. He was sitting alone, breathing heavily. Theodore. She knelt beside him. Are you all right? Just tired. He smiled weakly. Old age catching up with me. Let me call a doctor. No need. Theodore took her hand. I'm dying, Victoria. Have been for a while. The doctors gave me 6 months a year ago. I've been living on borrowed time. Victoria felt tears prick her eyes. Why didn't you tell me? Because you didn't need another burden. Theodore's grip was surprisingly strong. And because I wanted to see this. The foundation. The gala. You standing on that stage changing the world. He smiled. Eleanor told me once that the meaning of life is to find a gift worth giving and give it away. You are my gift, Victoria. Watching you become who you were always meant to be. That's been worth everything. Theodore? Don't cry for me. He wiped her cheek with a trembling hand. I've had a magnificent life. 2 great loves, 3 wonderful children even if I lost them too soon. And now you and those 3 beautiful babies. He coughed softly. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me you'll keep going. Not just the foundation, not just the company, your life. Promise me you'll fall in love again. Promise me you'll let someone take care of you for once. Promise me you won't spend the rest of your years being Victoria Chen the survivor. Be Victoria Chen the woman, the mother, the lover, the friend. I promise. Victoria was crying openly now. Theodore pulled her into a hug. He smelled like old books and expensive cologne, like safety and wisdom and love. Eleanor would be so proud of you, he whispered. I am so proud of you. I love you, Theodore. I love you too, child. He held her tighter. I love you too. 3 weeks later, Theodore Walsh passed away in his sleep. He left everything to the Phoenix Foundation with one exception, his pocket watch, which went to Victoria. Engraved on the back were words she had never noticed before. Time is the only currency that matters. Spend it on love. Victoria wore that watch every day for the rest of her life. 1 year later, on a Tuesday morning that felt completely ordinary, Victoria was making breakfast when Sophie tugged at her sleeve. Mommy. Yes, sweetheart. Why don't we have a daddy? Victoria set down the spatula. She knelt until she was eye level with her daughter. You do have a daddy, she said carefully. But he made some choices that hurt people, so he had to go away. Is he coming back? No, baby. He's not coming back. Sophie considered this with the seriousness only a 6-year-old can muster. Mommy? Yes. Are you sad that we don't have a daddy? Victoria pulled all 3 children into a hug. Noah and Elias protested they were too old for group hugs now, but she held on anyway. I have everything I need. Victoria kissed Sophie's forehead, then Noah's, then Elias's. I have you. I have your brothers. I have the best family in the world. But families have daddies, Sophie insisted. Some families do. Some families have 2 mommies. Some families have 2 daddies. Some families have grandparents or aunts or uncles. Family isn't about who you're supposed to have. It's about who loves you. Victoria smiled. And I love you 3 more than anything in the entire universe. Sophie thought about this. More than ice cream. Much more than ice cream. More than puppies. Infinitely more than puppies. More than... Sophie struggled to think of the most valuable thing she could imagine. More than the moon. Victoria laughed. More than the moon, the stars, the sun, and every planet combined. Sophie smiled satisfied. Okay, she said. Can we have pancakes now? Yes, Your Majesty. Victoria stood up. Pancakes it is. The children ran to the table arguing about who got the first one. Victoria watched them go, her heart so full it ached. She thought about the woman she had been 6 years ago, lying in that hospital bed, believing she was worthless, signing those papers with shaking hands. That woman was gone. In her place stood something stronger, something wiser, something forged in fire and tempered by love. Victoria Chen had lost everything on the worst night of her life, and in losing everything she had found the only thing that mattered. Family. Not the family Marcus wanted to buy and sell. Not the family the world thought she should have. Her family. Built from scratch. Held together by love instead of obligation. It wasn't perfect. Nothing ever was. But it was hers. And that was enough. The ending of Victoria's story wasn't a fairy tale. There was no prince, no castle, no happily ever after tied up with a bow. There was just a woman standing in her kitchen making pancakes for 3 children who would never know how close they came to having a very different life. A woman who had been called worthless and proved herself invaluable. A woman who had been thrown away and built an empire. A woman who had been told she was nothing and became everything. Victoria Chen didn't need a happy ending. She needed a beginning. And every morning when she woke up and saw three faces waiting for her, she got one. That was the truth Marcus Sterling never understood. The truth that took Victoria years to learn. Revenge wasn't victory. Money wasn't success. Power wasn't strength. Love was. Love was the only thing that mattered. The only thing worth fighting for. The only thing that turned survivors into conquerors. Victoria had loved and lost and loved again. She had fallen and risen and fallen and risen. She had been broken into a million pieces and rebuilt herself into something unbreakable. And now, standing in her kitchen with flour on her hands and chaos all around her, she finally understood what her grandmother had known all along. The meek don't inherit the earth. The brave do. The ones who keep fighting when everyone tells them to stop. The ones who keep loving when everyone tells them they shouldn't. The ones who refuse to let their worst day define their whole story. Victoria Chen was not a victim. She was not a survivor. She was not a billionaire or a philanthropist or a cautionary tale. She was a mother, and that was the only title that had ever mattered.